Welcome, everyone, to the High Performance Legal Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Arkfeld, president and founder of Prevail Legal Marketing. And today I have Alan Murphy Jr. joining us, the founder and owner of Law Office Success. Alan, thanks for joining us.
Adam, thank you for having me.
All right, so I was doing a little background on you and I saw a quote on your LinkedIn. I didn't tell you I was going to ask you about this. And it says, solving problems for small law firms using methods that aren't magic. Tell me about
100%.
that. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. So one of my favorite sayings is that you can't build a house from the roof down. You got to start with a good foundation. And my background is heavy business development, entrepreneurship, marketing, but really, it's going out there and knocking on doors. And what I see all the time, and it doesn't matter the industry, but specifically in the legal industry, is lawyers are taught interweb. And when I say that, I mean digital marketing. Sit back, put it on pay-per-click, put it on Facebook, do your videos. They don't do any hand-to-hand combat. They don't do any sort of foundational marketing. They develop their centers of influence. Often I engage with them, with clients that have 200 or 150 contacts on LinkedIn. And these are guys that are making a couple $100,000 a year. But, I call them accidental entrepreneurs. They wake up in the morning, they're 10 years, 5 years into their business, and they're like, I have a payroll, I have overhead, I have debt. What do I do now and how do I grow? So I dig in and I help them figure out, what the next level is and what the good, the bad, the ugly parts of their business are that we can turn in and develop profit. So to bring what I said, which I sort of a long answer for a short question, is most entrepreneurs do not start building a good foundation from the moment they get going. They try to just jumpstart everything with pay-per-click and digital, which I know most people don't want to hear that, but you still got to have centers of influence.
Yeah, tell me about that. Tell me about the foundation and what that looks like. I mean, we do pay-per-click and marketing, and what I actually see is that we will generate leads. And if someone hasn't done it or they haven't done a lot of volume, the leads will come in and they have a very difficult time handling them. They don't have 24/7 call coverage. But talk to me about what you mean by the foundation, besides the digital marketing stuff.
So you're talking about sinking the ship.
I don't know.
That's what happens is you sink the ship. So they hire somebody like y'all that are going to go out there and you're going to get the job done, right? Because you know how to put their money to work and get them a multiple. What happens is they're broken on the inside. So their intake's broken, their consultation process is broken, their sales process is broken. They don't utilize but maybe 10% of their CRM. They don't know how to follow up. They don't know how to put people into drips. And so they're only as good as the shiny objects that are in front of them that are really hot leads. And one of my favorite things that I do with my clients is I make them get on the phone with me every single week for an hour, or their intake person too. And we talk about what's hot, what's shiny, what's lukewarm, and what went cold. Because you can do all the marketing in the world, but if you're the dog that caught the fire truck, you still got to know what to do with it when you get it. So if you're talking about foundations, it's having all those steps in place. You're, being operationally efficient as well as efficient for marketing.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you about a couple of those methods or strategies or tactics here in a little bit. But first, I just want to hear a bit about how you got started on this journey with your business and, and in the legal space as well. So give me a little bit of background.
You got the blindest squirrel on the block on this call, man. So I was with my family business. It's a 110-year-old fine linen store out of West Palm Beach, Florida, called Pioneer Linens. And so it's a family-owned business. I'm the fourth generation, and my great-grandfather started it a long time ago. And I thought I was the heir of the business. And my sisters got involved, and my mother took it over. And about 2012, I found out that I shouldn't say I found out, it became really apparent that I wasn't going to be able to take it over and run it. And I was the only sibling with real business, studied business person. And so I started making plans to try to buy the business, to buy parts of the business, and none of it came to fruition. And at the same time, I got divorced. And so here I was 30, let's see, how old was I? 33 years old, right? Been in the same job for 14 years. I was in business development before that, but same business. I had no idea if I was employable. And now I'm looking at another career going, shit, what do I do? So I got divorced, sort of held steady for the time being, and started dating, and I'm leading somewhere. I promise. I started dating an amazing young woman that is now my wife. And for y'all watching, she's back in the background. And I knew this time around it was going to be different, family, the whole deal. And I couldn't just sit there and be a paychecked individual working for mommy, with upside at some point. I call that the Prince Charles syndrome. And so I gave my mother 2 months notice because I wanted it to be very objective, not very, emotional, like, fuck you, mommy, I'm leaving the business. I wrote out a business plan of everything that I had going on in the business because I wanted to keep it as very business-like as possible. And in September 28th, 2017 was my last day. I had no idea what I was going to do for a living, but I know I could sell anything. And I had a great network because you all heard me talking about earlier about building your network. And so I started cold calling friends and business acquaintances saying, look, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want 2.0 to be. Who do you know? And I started taking lunches and not sitting still. And I have a saying that action creates reaction and motion creates emotion. And that's the equation for opportunity. I never guarantee money, but that is definitely an equation for opportunity. And I just started making waves and doing things. I landed at a multifamily office. And so I was doing business development for that gentleman. I was with him for 6 months. I brought him opportunity to develop assets under management. But because my family roots run so deep in our area with ultra high net worth crowd, he thought that I would bring him more money in the first 6 months than the 9 million of possible AUM that I possibly could. And he goes, sorry, man, I'm letting you go. So then about 4 or 5 weeks later, I ended up at a custom home builder. This time I call it an upfront contract. So I set up front. My family knows everybody in the ultra high net worth market. I built the specialty side for my family business doing yachts, jets, and estates. But you don't just go, hey guys, this is what I'm doing now. Give me the money. You got to build the relationships because sales is all about, right, filling a gap in the market, but also, listening for the pain and filling that, solving the problems for that pain when the opportunity arises. And so I was with the guy for a year, brought him 12 million in estimatable jobs, sat me down a year to date, says, all right, man, goes, appreciate it, but I thought you'd bring me 25 million in jobs with your family's connections. I was like, I told you. You didn't listen, but I told you. And so here I was now married with a baby due 40 days away. I was 37, 8, 9 at the time, 39 years old, sort of on like career 3.5, right? 2.5. I'm going, shit, what do I do now? And God bless my wife. I was like, I need to go get health insurance and find a job and this. And she's like, let's just go. So so I had a buddy of mine that was working for a law firm consulting company. And he said, Alan, he goes, I'm going to make some introductions, some small law firms for you that I consult for back office operations. But, I can't get you the job. You got to get the job. I can get you in the door. So I met a law firm out in Newport Beach that did estate and trust. Didn't know, still don't claim to know shit about the law. I know how to market. I know how to build business. And so I got in front of them and gave them a proposal, and lo and behold, they took it. I didn't even have a company. I invoiced my first 5 clients under Alan Murphy Jr. I'd never met these people before. If it was me, I never would send a check to somebody I've never met to their name specifically on an intro. I mean, come on. It goes back to why I have a job with these lawyers. They need a business advisor. And so 1 lawyer turned into 3 literally turned into 6. By the time I met the 6th lawyer and landed the proposal, I said, shit, I got to make this thing official. My little boy had been born. My wife and I were on a 3-week cross-country road trip showing off little man to her side of the family. She was on maternity leave at the time. We had nowhere to be, and we literally lived out of like hotel rooms and Airbnbs for 3 weeks. And because you always save your money, people got to have that liquidity for when times are rough. And we enjoyed ourselves, and I built Law Office Success. I came up with the name Law Office Success while we were driving because I needed a URL that was available, and I needed a name that was very, very much of what you do, which is build law offices to be successful. Called my banker up. That's another thing. Always have a good relationship with your banker. Called my banker up and said, "Hey, man, so I started this company. I have a check coming in the mail. I'm having it sent to the bank care of you, and I need you to deposit it into a bank account that you're going to sign for because I'm not there." So my banker forged my signature, opened the bank account, got the check, and that's how I got my first dollar for Law Office Success, and it's been a success ever since. So it's been 3 years. I've worked with 25 law firms. I keep about 17 at any given time. I average about 18 to 24 months per engagement, and I fired 2 clients, but along the way, but it's a lot of fun. I have a really great time, and I work with some amazing small law firm entrepreneurs.
That's awesome. That's such a great story. When do you mind me just asking, and some of these things kind of stick out to me, when you're, what were you thinking when you had quit your job with your parents' company and didn't know what you were doing next, thought you were on this trajectory? Like, where was your mindset at that time?
So I've been working for the family business for 14 years. My grandfather ran the business up until he passed, and it wasn't delineated as to which way who would get what shares. It ended up my mother got 100% of the company, and so I always thought I was going to be the heir apparent. And so when you're at a family business, I like to describe it as like, they put the fun in dysfunctional. And so sorry about that. Hold on.
You're okay.
We have a puppy. So yeah. Anyway, so what happened is you end up getting really bad habits. And I was lucky that I surrounded myself with some amazing older, wiser entrepreneurs and business guys, and even not just entrepreneurs, but like corporate people that have a lot of structure. And I started noticing that the more structured that, sorry, dude.
You're good.
Fun of working from home.
Yeah, no. It's
So I left the family business because I wanted older, wiser business guys to kick my ass back in line, because I was going to go into my 40s, maybe take over the family business at some point. But if I was going to go work somewhere, it wasn't for a paycheck. Money comes to those who work every single time. The harder you work and the better you do, the money follows. I tell everybody, don't ever do business for making money. Do business to be the most gangster dude at what you do, and the money will come. And so I went to go find an older, wiser, more successful business guy to beat me up and get rid of my bad habits. And what I found was small businesses that were antiquated, that didn't know how to delve into the ultra high net worth market, that had never thought about anything more than just basic traditional marketing. And my out of the box approaches to building markets don't jive with a lot of people. And I'm doing that because it's like an out of the box, Venn diagram. And I failed. The failure was on me because I never fit to conform these people's expectations. I don't put it on them, right? Maybe their expectations in terms of revenue, but if I showed up every day and complied and didn't push back and gave them the yeses they were looking for, I might still be a W-2 employee, but I wouldn't be an entrepreneur, kicking ass in the lawyer's face.
I want to ask you about this, one, network building, just sort of in general, because you've talked about it a few times. And I know that for me personally, I'm not really built that way. And then also after that, I'd like to hear a little bit about the higher net worth, because it seems like you have a lot of experience there. But when you talk about just network building for an attorney, what's the advice that you give attorneys to build their network? I mean, LinkedIn is one thing where you go and you can do that, but is that the network you're
Hell
talking about? Or
no. LinkedIn's one of the biggest wasted tools on God's earth. Maybe someday Reid Hoffman will get it right, but until then, he's screwing the pooch. I mean, to that point, I put a post out the other day about a virtual assistant, and I've gotten 3 cold calls, text messages, and emails from VA companies in India. Not a single bit of advice because I don't fit the algorithm to have my peer group of 5,000 plus, because I don't post all the time trying to work the algorithm. You know, so no, I don't. I think LinkedIn is, you got to get your connections past the 500 mark on LinkedIn. You know what I'm talking about? The little badge that says 500 plus. And the only reason for that is it gives you street cred, you know? But other than that, you know, no matter what you do, in very few instances, as the exception, hand-to-hand combat's where it's at. Your biggest orders, and I mean, and push back if you want, but I would imagine your best clients and your biggest clients and your biggest money clients didn't come from digital marketing. It came from referrals of people that you have relationships with.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, I know that the vast majority of our clients are coming from relationships.
Yeah, people do business with people. Go ahead.
I do think the contrary, the other component of that is, if you sell a product, you know, or you're selling something that's more transactional, I don't think it applies as much. I mean, yes, you want reviews and people to refer your product. I think if you're selling something that's more cookie cutter, you can really leverage digital marketing in a different way. But for services, I do believe, at least to start, referrals are by far the best.
They're everything. I mean, without a doubt, they're everything. So you're talking about networking. So what I tell my clients, right? So the best example, one of my favorite examples to use is I had a lawyer hire me, and one of the first things he said to me was, I bought 5 foursomes at a chamber event. Who do I take? And he was a commercial real estate guy. And he goes, who do I take golfing? And he does resi too. Actually, he does residential real estate transactions too. And he goes, who do I take golfing? I was like, well, who's your best referral source? Like, this is literally like the second week being involved with this guy. I tell all my clients, like, I'm here to ask questions and learn for the first 3 months. And then, you know, I'll bring a plan and a solution, because I don't come in with a silver bullet, right? Every engagement's different. So he said, mortgage brokers, commercial bankers, commercial realtors, residential realtors, title companies. So, all right, well, who's one of the guys that you know that golfs? This guy. So, all right, well, you know, he was a commercial realtor. I said, okay, well, what do commercial realtors need? Commercial bankers. Who's a commercial banker that we know that golfs? Got him to come, right? And then I said, okay, who outside of their circle is someone that you could bring to the table that needs to meet these two, right? And it was an HVAC company, because, like, you know, do commercial air conditioning and all that stuff. Teed up the foursome, pun intended, and we did that, replicated that 4 more times. He ended up becoming best buddies with one of those guys. And, you know, the biggest thing that I talk about, you know, building social capital is, you know, it's like one of my very close buddies, after I got divorced, I was like, how do you keep your marriage happy? And he said, you know, he goes, I put nickels and dimes into the marital piggy bank until I can make withdrawals, but I make sure it's never overdrawn. But that's true to business relationships too, and it's often overlooked. We don't always need referrals for business. We need introductions to continue building our center of influence and our social capital. And people forget about that all the time. They're like, well, I can't reach out to that guy because I can't bring him a referral, so I'm not valuable to him. Bullshit. There is somebody in your circle that person wants to meet. They may be like 2 different circles, right? Your social circle and your professional circle, but you can mesh those 2 to be able to build that social capital and build that equity. And people forget that. And that's one of the most valuable things I bring to the table, because when digital marketing and internet marketing and all that stuff takes a shit, which it always does, because the economy ebbs and flows, and all that stuff's tied to good and bad economies, you got to be able to have a good backup. And it goes right back to where we started about lawyers, is you got to be able to shake that tree. And if you don't have that foundation to shake that tree, because all you're going to do is sit there and they're going to put in the, they're going to go, oh, my business is slow, I'm going to put another 1,000 at PPC. They could do is pick up the damn phone and make 20 phone calls, go have a couple lunches and see what's out there that way as well. I mean, there's a few exceptions like criminal law. You can't go to lunch and go, hey, anyone that broke the law that needs a good lawyer. But you can go out there and leverage therapists and wealth managers and tax accountants that are going to be the first call when a white collar guy breaks a crime or breaks the law and commits a crime. People forget about that all the time. We've become so focused on digital marketing that most of the world has forgotten that there's a lot to be said for hand-to-hand combat. And I call it hand-to-hand combat on purpose because you're literally going out there and you're tucking and rolling and you're creating blocking and tackling plans and you're creating, you're going to build this troop and that troop, and it's all management and a lot of tactical and how you develop your business that way.
Have you read The Pumpkin Plan? You know that book?
Oh.
The Pumpkin Plan is very similar to what you're describing. And the concept is you basically, if you have a client, you look at all of the other vendors that are interfacing with that client. So for us, we're digital marketing. So we might look at the call centers. We might look at website developers, SEO companies. And then you go and you meet with all of the vendors that are interfacing with your client, and they're not competing with you, but they're in the same space. So it's the exact same concept you were describing, which is the golf foursome, where, when you were saying that, I was like, HVAC company, I never would have thought of that, but they're all interconnected and intertwined. And then it just like that network sort of builds out for people to know who you are and refer in, because, if you go out and land a client, you're landing one client. If you land a referral partner, you're landing dozens or whatever the number of clients is.
Screw the referral client, dude. You got to do centers of influence.
Tell me about that.
So that's the next rung, right? Because you don't want just a referral client. It goes back to Malcolm Gladwell. You ever read any of his stuff?
A little bit, not a lot.
So you want the mavens, right? The guy that walks around, he's like, so I tell my clients, the goal is not to be a referral source for people. You want people to know, to call you I want, if you re-engage Adam, I'm going to build your network. So people are like, my boy Adam is your man. I'm not going to introduce you to 3 people for PPC or digital marketing. I'm going to introduce you to Adam. Adam's going to do it right. But you know what? Adam's an honest enough guy that if he can't do it, he's going to introduce you to someone that can. And then they make that personal introduction, right? An email. It's not like, here's a business card, here's a phone number, call Adam. It's, I'm going to hand it to you. And those are your centers of influence. And those are the people that you really got to build that rapport and that social capital with. And those are the ones that they keep you afloat when nobody else will.
And those are called mavens. That's what you said? Mavens?
So it's a maven. So they people, because people look at them and they go, oh, he knows what he's talking about. He's up here, right? So that HVAC company wasn't just some HVAC company. It was like a $25 million HVAC company that has trucks, that has commercial buildings, multiple commercial buildings. So that guy was not only a referral source, but also a client, prospect.
So how do you instruct or suggest to your attorneys that they go through this process? You mentioned the golf situation. The guy had already bought the golf things. If you're saying, hey, all right, here's how you build your center of influence. Networking events? What types of activities do you suggest?
I'm more, again, going back to hand-to-hand combat, right? So I call it curating an event. So I don't know much about you, Adam. So do you play sports? Are you into gaming? What do you do when no one's looking at you on video? You're on the spot now. You're going to turn red as your shirt.
No, I have kids and I work out. I do a little bit of social stuff, but it's almost all family business and personal.
What do you do for fun? You got to do something for fun. What do you do for fun with your buddies? Are you a cyclist? What is it? Football? You going to sports, professional sports games? Are you a nut about college football? Or
my fun is traveling. So we do trips, and honestly, like I do like doing all those things in between. But if you're saying like, what do I love the most? It's traveling somewhere. But I do like going to sports games. I like basketball. I like football. So those are probably easier.
Okay. So
Yeah.
like, but to that point, right? Like people, so in this particular case, like it would be, okay, we want to develop a relationship with Adam.
But I'll say
We
family.
know,
If you want to develop a relationship with me, it like something I could take my kids to and like interact family wise because they're so young. Like that's just how I interact right now.
right. And that's my priority as well. I agree. You know, that's also why I work at home is like, I don't need a co-working space and I get to hang out with my 2-year-old and, you know, I'm really sort of crazy about managing my calendar. So that way, you know, I can hang out with my wife and my son, you know, and our dog that barks. And so, but in this instance, like if you were a prospect of mine and I didn't know you, let's start with that. And somebody I knew you, I would figure out, and let's just go ahead and roll with the whole family thing, right? So in this particular case, I would figure out a way to curate an event that you could bring your family to. So maybe it's actually I have a client, a perfect example. I have an estate and trust guy that we're doing a family outing at the local water park in Long Island because he's a big family guy. And we know a couple of the other people are family people and they're going to go tomorrow. And we invited a couple of wealth managers, tax advisors, and a couple other centers of influence. And he's paying for the whole thing with a private, you know, cabana and food and the whole deal. So I would curate something like that. And depending upon my relationship with that individual that is our mutual acquaintance, I'd either say, hey, man, invite Adam because he's been on my prospect list for 2 years. I can't get in front of him. But now this guy looks like a stud because he's going, hey, Adam, this dude's got a cabana. They got a magician coming. You know, it's the water park that, you know, is whatever. It's, you know, normally $250, $300 for the day. And you're like, you know, so now I'm covering the nut on that. And now I know that you're going to show up. On the other side of it, maybe you and I have been, I would call you like a 2-degree acquaintance, right? Where we see each other like once or twice a year. You go, no, Alan, he's a good guy. He gets the job done for small law firms. I'm like, no, Adam, he does a good job for digital marketing and bigger law firms that need class action PPC and stuff like that, right? But we're not that well acquainted, but maybe I have an opportunity to you know bring you in or pitch you something, or maybe someone I know wants to meet you. But it would behoove me to broker that to get a stronger relationship with that person. I'm going to bring you because you're going to meet that guy. I'm going to look good because I brokered the whole thing, and I call it curating, right? So we're going to curate the entire event. I'm going to have 2 to 3 people that love me that are going to go, Alan kills it. He does a great job. Blah 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 blah. I'm going to have a couple people that maybe just got to know me. So now they're going to see the love. They're going, he's doing a good job, but I haven't been with him enough. And then you're at least going to go, oh, well, maybe this dude should be on my radar. And that's that's one of the strategies.
Yeah, I love this conversation because if people invite me to happy hour, anything happy hour or social, I'm like, not in. I don't want to go because I have very limited amount of time with my kids, and I choose my evenings very carefully. And so, if someone's going to try and get me to go to a dinner or something, or an event like a basketball game just to network, I'm not going. But I can see how someone in a different position would want to do that. You know, maybe their kids are older, they don't have kids, or whatever. And then it's just, hey, it's just a fun night out at the Suns game. But for me, a fun night at the Suns game means that I'm not hanging out with my kids, so I'm not doing that.
But okay, and so like in that particular instance, if I knew that, it would be sweet tickets or wherever the open bar is, and you know something, maybe a backstage tour in the locker room or something like that.
Well, if you get to that level, that changes the game a little bit.
And that's my point, though, right? So, but it's finding that one extra degree that becomes compelling to be able to gain your time and your interest.
Yeah.
People don't look at it like that. Social media and to go back to LinkedIn, it's sort of like a throw it up there, see who. But most people who throw stuff on, they're crazy about putting stuff on LinkedIn. They're not hitting up the people liking, sharing, and engaging.
Yeah.
They're going, oh yeah, I know that guy. He likes my shit all the time. Big whoop. It's his assistant going down and working the algorithm so his stuff looks better later.
Yeah, this information's gold. I love it. All right, I want to ask you about high net worth. I was listening to a podcast recently. One guy was talking about something similar, and he goes, "Yeah, when I talk to high net worth people, I just email them. There's something along the lines of, 'Hey, can you call me?' That's it for business development. It's something really off the wall." And so I'm just curious, when you talk about that, are there different strategies? What sort of advice do you give to people in the high net worth? Yeah.
Let's break it down a little bit more, right? So you have your businesses and services that cater to the ultra high net worth market. So that's one stratum, right? And then you have the next stratum. I'm actually gonna write this down. I've never been challenged for this. So
I'll send you the recording.
so just yeah, if I don't write it down, I forget it. So stratum. Got it. So right, but you have your first stratum, which is the businesses that cater to it. So again, HVAC, conservatories, right? Risk management, so insurance, underwriters, people that underwrite weird stuff like Monets, Manets, Ferraris, antiquities, other arts, those sort of things, jewelry. Then you go up a rung and you have their low level care providers. So you have their house managers, I call them like the private service providers, like domestic. So like they're private, they're estate managers, they're house managers, butlers, major domos, chefs, cooks, nannies, stewardesses, and people that run the operations on these 20, 30,000 square foot properties. Because it does take a team. And then you go the next rung up and you have a multifamily office, right? And then typically it's an independent wealth management company or brokerage that also pays all the bills. So when you reach 38 million is the number to be able to have fuck you money. I don't have to work again and I can go live on an airplane and do what I want. You still have to work to run out of that, but you can run out of it. But you're not paying your own bills anymore. Someone's doing all your light bills, little Johnny's private school, arranging your jets, your yachts, whatever it may be, your travel for you. So you can focus on making money and keep developing leverage. So that's the multifamily office. Then you go to single family office, which is around 50 to 75 or more million, especially when you get into the billions and 100 millions. And that's when you have your own investment advice, like your own basically investment team doing direct investment. Your own like HR department, what else? Accounting, etc. Your whole life is basically provided for. Like you don't even have to carry a wallet at that point. And then trying to get into so I guess the question is like, how do you network with them, or what are you trying to?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you network with them, right? So depending upon the service, you got to figure out who the person is, because way too often, unless you're in wealth management or jets or yachts or Ferraris, arts, antiquities, and any other what I consider a luxury vanity item, you can go to the principal themselves. But a lot of times when it comes to the service side of it, especially on the legal side, they don't give a shit, right? Wealthy people only have one commodity at this point that they got to be malicious. And it goes back to what we were talking about, time. Time's the only thing a richer person can't afford. So if you can make their life easier, if they don't have to think about it, if it's done for them, that's where the win comes. So sorry about that. So dog's got a sharp bark. So to go back to network, I'm getting somewhere with this, I promise. So if you're not providing that for those people, go down a rung. Like, it's really cool. Good job. You got in front of the billionaire. But I can tell you every billionaire's yacht is run by the family office, right? The management company and the yacht crew. The owner, literally the only time the owner is involved is when the thing is built. When it gets launched into the water, they could give two flying shits as long as it's there and they get to use it. Or like you look at those vanity properties up in like the Hamptons or Hawaii and like, so-and-so's private island. They don't give a shit. It's an asset. They'll use it when they can. And you know what? The person running it better make sure that the person that services that property takes such a good job that when that owner shows up to use it, everything's in working order, because too often people forget who they're actually working for. If you're doing work for, I don't know, Larry Ellison, Tim Cook, um, who else? Jamie Dimon, right? Any of those guys, any of the tech guys like Sergey Brin, they're all yachtsmen. Like, you're not working for them. You're working for their crew, because your job is to make sure that you take such good care of their people. Their people aren't having to like get in front of the firing, line for the boss. Everything's taken care of. So I would challenge most people to think of where they really fit in the equation and who the end user is. And then that's when, you really go and strike, because like all those guys have shell corporations. All those guys have holding corporations, right? One's a cover, the other one carries the assets. I have a perfect example is King Griffin and the Citadel guy, you know what I'm talking about? So he's a billionaire. Citadel is a wealth advisor. He owns $200 million in dirt in Palm Beach. And when I was with the builder, I sat one night and pinged about 50 different variations using a couple of email verification tools that give you a percentage of correctness, until I found one that gave me like a 75% chance. And I wrote a nice note, Mr. This is who I am. This is what we do. And his personal assistant wrote me back. And I talked about feet on the street in Palm Beach. And so I went up too high, right? Shot for the principal, ended up at the underling. And it was like, oh, he doesn't even have an email. He's so wealthy, he doesn't have an email. And the people that do have his email are the guys he's doing deals with. So figure out who those people are that work for the people.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Did that help? I mean, is that what you were looking for? Or?
No, I mean, whatever you provide is what I'm looking for. But I mean, it makes sense, right? Don't kind of like know your place, and everyone's going to have a different place in the ladder, and based on the client, how big they are, and how big the person is. Your place will differ. Let's change.
I'll add one more thing: is when you do get that opportunity to get in front of a 100 millionaire or billionaire or someone worth 50 million or whatever, in terms of like your wealth compared to where they are, that gives you that sort of like, oh shit, be yourself. They are the same person they always were. I got a good example about that is and talk a little bit across marketing too. As well as with my family business, I'm the world's shittiest linen salesman. I couldn't make two colors look pretty to save my life, but I knew how to tell the story to create the compelling of why people would go into the family business and shop, right? So I put my family business with Trinity Yachts, Dom Perignon from Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, Champagne Spirits, and the Winterfest Boat Parade, which is the largest in-water boat parade in the world. And we procured a 190-foot boat that was owned by the money guy for Tim Hortons. Dom Perignon wanted to launch their P2 champagne. So Pioneer Linens provided all the linens and table linens for the cocktail party. And so my wife, then girlfriend, was on the boat. And there's this 80-year-old guy who owned the boat. And he's sitting in like the salon and by himself. And she's in this really pretty slinky red dress. And he looks over at her and he goes like that. I'm standing right next to him. And she comes and he pats the seat next. She sits down and he looks at me right in the eye. He goes, son, I'm sure you're going to do all right in life. He looks at her and he goes, I'm rich, I'm old, and I have a bad heart. What do you say? I was like, man, you are my hero. And I'm just telling you that they're all like that. Don't put these people up on a pedestal.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, let's shift in a little bit to, I want to hear a bit more about operations and, just sort of starting with when you're engaging with new legal clients, what are some of the mistakes that you see most often in their operations? And typically, what's the size of the client that you're starting to work with, when you see these types of problems?
So I work with 1 to 3 person law firms that may have like up to 10 employees. But my rule is one, as I told you, it's you got to get on the phone with me 1 hour a week to work on the business. But two is there's only got to be one person with a gavel. Um, and to that point, you'll see 2 or 3 partners that are like, oh, so and so, go do this. And then another person's going, we'll go and do this. And the other one, now they have 3 bosses, 3 chiefs. Nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody's getting what they want. So there's like this sort of visceral, like underlying anger and tone. I really like working with like really 1 to 2 person firms. Because there's always one decision maker. But what I see a lot is like they're accidental entrepreneurs. So they'll cut their nose off to spite their face because like Susie's really good at answering phones. And now I need an intake person. So therefore, that individual has now been promoted to intake. And now we have a receptionist. And now it's like, well, how's your receptionist or how's your intake person doing? Well, she used to be the receptionist and I promoted it. I'm not really getting what I want because like, constantly getting involved in operations and always like wondering what the reception is doing. And you're like, you didn't hire a salesperson. Your intake person is your front line. Ring, ring, ring. Thank you for calling law firm. How may I help you? I'm interested and I have a need. I'm qualified. Okay, let me give you to my intake person. Your intake person's in charge of making that person feel so compelled. They're not going to, as soon as you hang up, they're not going to call anybody else. So you got to make sure that the right person's on the right seat on the bus. It's the Jim Collins good to great. And so I see that all the time. The accidental entrepreneurs are like, that person's been with me for so long. I call them people collectors. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden you find an organization that's like mature, right? Mature-ish. They're the 25-year-old that sort of has their shit together, but they're not the 40-year-old that really has their shit together. And they collect people along the way. Well, that guy was with me forever. So I promoted him to this because like I'd be a jerk if I fired him. He's got a family and 4 kids. Who gives a shit? It's your name on the front of the building. It's your name on the loans. It's your name on the bank account. It's your ass on the line if you can't make payroll. So too often these people collect, the principals of the law firms collect people along the way, and they're my people. They're not. If they're not giving you what you need, then you're not your people. So, wrong place, wrong position, wrong accountability, wrong job description, no job description, no KPIs, I call them Monday kickoffs and Friday follow-ups, that sort of stuff.
Someone told me one time that you will outgrow some of your employees and your employees will outgrow you. And same with clients. You'll outgrow some of your clients and they might outgrow you. And that, for some reason, that comment really struck with me because I've owned agencies for 12 years and it's, kind of like what got you here won't necessarily always get you there. And sometimes that materializes when there's just friction and one of the 2 parties, makes an ejection. But what you're describing is a really intentional, hey, my receptionist, now I need intake. And I moved her to intake or him to intake and it's not working. And then it's making the decision of not building up enough pressure where they explode or you explode, but saying, hey, like this just isn't working. And that can be really hard. That can be hard.
They'd rather lose revenue.
Yeah, because the emotional.
Rather lose revenue. You're like, you're talking about wife and kids. Like, little Johnny can't get his new bicycle, and you're gonna have trouble paying for food and diapers because you're obligated to someone that's treating you like shit and abusing you anyway. Like, yeah, way to go.
But the other component, the other part of that is, I think early in my career I probably wouldn't have thought this, but the person on the other side is just as unhappy as you are, or they're just sort of like skating by and doing their thing. But
100%.
If there's tension, if there's demands coming in and they're not fulfilling on those, they're not happy, and they could be at a better home. They could find a better job for themselves if they're not aligned with the job role.
Yeah. You ever heard of Vistage?
Yeah. Yep.
So I was a Vistage member for 8 years. And it's where, so people that don't know, it's an executive roundtable, and they have two levels. They have the CEOs and the people that own the businesses that really work on the high level of the business, the financials, the operations, and then they have people called key, and it's the people that report to the CEOs. And I was in key. I was lucky enough that I got put in key at 20 before I even went to work for my family business. I had a publishing company in college. I printed 10,000 magazines every 2 months, and I had 150 advertisers in Palm Beach County that gave college students a discount with their student ID. And I had this peer group, and for 4 hours in the morning, someone comes and speaks. Were you a Visage member, or you just know about it?
I'm an EO member, so I
Okay,
know.
so you're right. Yeah. So
Similar.
similar but different.
Right.
And so 4 hours in the morning, someone comes in and they really talk about and dive in deep into something. In the afternoon, it's a roundtable of peers that kick your ass and hold you accountable. And one of the famous sayings was, if you release, they call it firing people, releasing them to industry, because you're putting them back in the marketplace where they can go and be happier. Because I actually heard it over the weekend at a lawyer conference I was at, is all too often we promote people who end up swimming upstream instead of downstream. And that analogy alone just sounds exhausting.
Do you encourage your clients to join organizations like Vistage, or?
Yeah, oh man, you are a reflection of your closest 1 degree. And they're like, you're 6 degrees. Bullshit. It's your inner circle, your innermost sanctum. The guy that so I have a matrix that I use for my clients to show them how networking works, right? And I like to hunt and fish and shoot and all those things. And I was target shooting at the range and zeroing in one of my optics on one of my guns. And I was like, shit, this is like networking. And so the 10 ring, the bullseye, those are you guys at 2 o'clock in the morning after a rough night out on that one time you didn't call Uber and you're sitting in jail and you need 10 grand in bail. You ain't calling your wife. And that's the guys like, Adam, I got you. No worries. Here's a credit card. Right? Then your 1 degree, which is the one just outside the bullseye, those are your professional colleagues. Those are those people that you see all the time, that you rely on. They're going to go, yeah, no problem. Let me make sure that it's in the budget. Let me check with the wife. Right? And then you go to 2 degrees, and it goes back to what we were talking about of it's a guy that that you call a friend, but he's really a second-degree acquaintance that you see a couple times a year. Like him enough, but if you don't talk to him for an entire year, you could give a shit. It's not going to affect your life, right? And then you go into 3, 4, 5 degrees, and those 3, 4, 5 degrees, if you can bring those people's 1, 2s, and 3s into your inner network by curating those value propositions that we talked about, that's where the magic happens. But people don't grow enough because they don't have their 1 degree, right? So not maybe your drinking buddies, but your professional colleagues, if they're not at your same level, right? You're still going to chamber events when you're really an executive and you're working the worker bees and you're never going to get challenged. You're never going to push yourself. You're never going to get in those awkward positions. And you need people that you can call up and go, hey man, I ran into this. I have no idea what to do, or I need this new job that I'm going to add in for operations or whatever. Do you have a job description that I can base this off of? Or financial, right? Loans, asset-based loans, factoring, those sort of things. Like you're only as good as your peer group.
Yeah.
Or you're a direct reflection of your peer group.
Yeah. And what I've found is that the people that are in my EO forum are all in different industries. So I get to see how different industries operate and understand their margins and things like that. But also just seeing how the business owners operate and what they do differently and how their models are maybe more efficient. I wish when I first started my first agency, I did website development. And website development's kind of a rough gig. I mean, it's project-based. You have people giving design advice that don't know design. It's very technical. You have scope. It's commoditized. You have scope issues.
Scope
And
creep.
scope creep. And the
I'm
models,
that guy, by the way. When I build websites for my clients, man, I scope creep the shit out of the developers because I can.
good, good. But that model's a tough model. It's like, it's just a grind. And the bigger you get, you're either doing factory where you're just pumping out a lot, or you're doing big custom projects where there's a lot of risk in big projects. And I just wish that, and I've seen other models now where I'm like, I wish someone would have told me like, hey man, you can do this, but that model's a little tough. And in some ways, I think the legal industry falls into that, which is the selling time model. And being able to pivot out of that, or maybe try and sell some sort of ancillary service, or the hiring aspect can be
right.
Can be really difficult. So
well, they don't understand scale, right? So like the business model for lawyers are bring on associates, maybe one or two partners, then you bring on paralegals, then you bring in admins for the paralegals, and then you add more intake, and it just becomes this like huge overhead machine that you're constantly trying, where if they took a more efficient approach to the way the law firm is and economies of scale. So like one of the other things that I do with my clients is they're like, I do it's a good one, like family law, right? Like, so it's alimony, divorce, child support. But if you really break it into, the different nuances of alimony, there's different kinds of alimony, there's different kinds of child support, there's different kinds of divorces. You end up increasing your SKUs. It's just like being back in retail. And now all those SKUs have different prices. And now you're just not, you're not a commodity shop anymore. You're becoming a specialty. That's why I'm not an agency. I have contractors. I help my clients build the teams. And once their teams are built, it's peace out, homie. I don't want to be around. Like, make a referral to another lawyer because I did a good job.
Yeah, great. Well, we're up on time. I wanted to say thank you for joining me on the podcast. What's the best way for people to learn more about you and get in touch?
Go to my website, lawofficesuccess.com. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. It's Alan Murphy Jr. Or you can Google me, and I know my cell phone's everywhere, so feel free to blow me up on my cell. Everybody else does.
Good. Awesome. Well, thanks, Alan. We appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Cool. Thanks, Adam. I appreciate it.